The year was 1916, and the fields of Flanders had become a grim graveyard of mud, blood, and shattered lives. The unrelenting artillery fire turned the once peaceful countryside into a desolate wasteland, where life and death blurred together under the constant fog of war. It was here, amidst the trenches and barbed wire, that the legend of the Ghost of Flanders began. The first whispers came from a night patrol. The men had been sent to scout no man's land, that hellish stretch between the opposing trenches where the living dared not linger. The patrol was comprised of 5 seasoned soldiers, men hardened by months of war. They had seen horrors most could not imagine, but nothing had prepared them for what they would encounter that night. As they crawled through the mud under the pale light of a waning moon, they heard it, a low, mournful wail carried on the wind. At first, they thought it was the cries of a wounded man, a soldier left behind in no man's land. But the sound grew louder, more guttural, and filled with a despair that chilled them to their cores. They froze, gripping their rifles tightly, their breaths visible in the frigid air. Then they saw it. A figure emerged from the mist, shrouded in a faint, ghostly glow. It was unmistakably a man, but something was horribly wrong. He wore the tattered uniform of a British officer, but his head was missing. In one hand, he clutched a lantern that flickered erratically, casting eerie shadows across the scarred earth. The other hand hung limply at his side, as though weighed down by an invisible burden. Despite his lack of a head, the figure seemed to know exactly where the soldiers were. The men were paralyzed with fear. The ghostly officer's body swayed as he walked, his boots making no sound against the mud. The wailing ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence that seemed to suck the air from their lungs. One of the soldiers, a young private named Harris, finally found his voice and whispered, What is that?" The figure stopped, just a few meters away. The lantern's light dimmed, and for a moment, the soldiers thought it would vanish. But then, the ghost raised the lantern high, as if searching for something. Its glow illuminated the ghostly visage of the battlefield, revealing countless craters, twisted wire, and bodies, so many bodies. "He's looking for his head," muttered Corporal Davies, his voice trembling. "That's what they say. An officer got decapitated by shrapnel here a few months back. He's been wandering ever since, looking for his head." The ghost began to move again, its steps slow and deliberate. It passed within arm's reach of the patrol, but it didn't acknowledge them. Instead, it seemed to be searching the ground, its lantern casting its dim light in all directions. The men watched in horrified silence as it disappeared into the mist, its glow fading until it was gone. The patrol returned to their trench, shaken and pale. They told their comrades what they had seen, and soon the story spread through the ranks. Some dismissed it as the product of nerves and exhaustion, but others swore they had seen the ghost themselves. Over time, the tale grew. Some claimed the ghost would appear only on nights when the fog was thick and the moon was waning. Others said they had heard his mournful wail echoing across the battlefield, even when no patrols were out. The legend of the Ghost of Flanders became a grim reminder of the war's horrors. Some soldiers left offerings, a cigarette, a piece of bread, in the hopes that the ghost would pass them by. Others avoided no man's land altogether on nights when the mist rolled in, fearing they might encounter the headless specter. Years later, when the war was over, veterans would still speak of the Ghost of Flanders. Whether he was the restless spirit of a fallen officer or a manifestation of the soldiers' collective trauma, no one could say for certain. But those who saw him would never forget the sight of the headless figure wandering the battlefield, his lantern flickering in the darkness, searching for something he would never find.